so you started traveling. I want to hear about that. What's it like for you to have, because you weren't married until a couple of years ago. You weren't married when you were doing this travel around the world.
Nope, not at all.
What is it like to leave your partner to go on long stints to Laos and South America? And
this sounds really cold-hearted. I love my wife. I love my wife to bits.
Yeah.
But I had always been the kind of person that enjoyed my own company. So being solo, being alone, never bothered me in the slightest, to be honest. You know, I almost kind of preferred it then. I have changed a lot, I think, over the years now. But then it wasn't an issue, you know. And when I decided I was going to, I don't know if you know the backstory as to why I did the trip and everything like that.
I know I do want to hear about that. I know it's about your mum, and actually we've been watching your content for a while now, and we've just been saying this is sort of the year of live your life. I think it's a really good motto to have.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good New Year's resolution. My partner's, she's trying to, essentially, the way she describes it is she wants to be more of herself around other people. She can be one of the, she's more introverted. We're very yin and yang. That's the running joke we have with each other. So she'll do the thing where we'll go out and we'll see people, and she might just shut down. And she likes being around people, but she just needs her own space. Yeah. So she wants to learn how to just realize that it's okay to be herself and be a bit silly around strangers or things like that. So live your life is like the perfect essence of that, I think. Yeah.
That sounds like me. That sounds like me up until basically I went to uni, I think, you know, up until like late teens. And I sort of changed over the next wee while, and especially after joining the old Bill and things like that. You know, you change as a person, don't you? Yeah. But coming back to that initial question, I didn't know my wife. I hadn't met my wife when I initially decided, right, I'm going to do this trip. Yeah. So when my wife and I met, I'd already made it public at work in my old job that I was going to do this thing, and that's how we met, through work. So the first date was very much like, you know, we told each other about ourselves, and then she said, so what's this trip I hear all about? So it's like, oh yeah, well, you know, 3 years time I'm going to be buggering off around the world. Is it okay to swear? Apologies.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah, I'm going to be buggering off around the world. So it was there on our horizon from day one. And you know, my wife's fantastic. She realised I made a promise to my mum before she died that I would live out my dream and do this trip I'd always wanted to do. So she was aware of what the trip meant, and it wasn't just some sort of pie in the sky thing, you know. I was doing it was gonna happen, and she would never stop that. So it was there, and you know, we were realistic about things. We kind of, you know, it was early days for us, so we might not even be together when I go, and if I am, we'll just deal with it. So
how long was that your idea to travel around? When did you start getting involved in motorbiking as well?
Right, okay. So I did not grow up riding motorbikes or anything like that. I wasn't really into travel. I think around about, it's something I'd always fancied, but my mum and dad both were like very anti-bikes. No, they're dangerous, you're not going to ride. I later found out my dad used to ride a motorbike, but I never knew that as a kid. You never told me any of
this. My dad's, he does like car crashes, and he's a lawyer, so he does that sort of thing. So I grew up being terrified of motorbikes, and watching your content has made me want to ride a bike more than I ever have in my entire life.
I mean, you can't get away from it. They are inherently dangerous. I crashed last month. You know, just hit some diesel on the road up in the mountains in Gran Canaria, and you know, in a car you'll skid, but you're surrounded by a big metal box with airbags. On a bike, you've got two wheels, and if you come off, you are the first point of contact with anything that's going to hit you. But it's everything that I think you either love bikes or you don't. And I'd never ridden a bike.
So what started you in that then?
My earliest memory, I was about 4 or 5. My dad used to work on the oil rigs, and I remember we lived out in the middle of nowhere in the countryside in northern Scotland. And my dad had a mate from work come and join us one time when my dad came home from being offshore. And I just remember he turned up on this massive big blue Suzuki. I remember the big Suzuki badge, big silver S motorbike. And the day he left, he picked me up and he put me on the tank of this bike and literally walked it down the drive. And I just thought, I love this. I love this. But I was always told, no, you can't have it. And then growing up, you know, I would see bike racing on the TV, and every now and then you'd see little clips of the Isle of Man TT, and I'd just be like, what is this? This looks incredible. But I just never did it. fast forward a little bit, sort of 2002, I think it was, 2004. Ewan McGregor, Charlie Boorman did The Long Way Round.
Right.
And my mum, I still don't know why, but my mum bought me the box set, the DVD box set. And it was not something that was ever on my horizons, never anything I'd even really thought about. But she gave it to me for Christmas one year, and I was just hooked. I watched that and thought, I need to do that. It wasn't I want, it was I need. I need to do that. That is me.
So was the international travel, that came later, or was that all tied up in the same thing? Did you always want to travel?
No.
Right.
I was not a traveller growing up. I didn't do the backpacking thing. I literally finished school, laboured on a building site for a few months before I started at uni. Right. Went to uni, did the uni thing, graduated, had become a dad while I was at uni. I had a good time at uni. I was a rugby guy, so I was just playing rugby, drinking, working. I worked in the clubs and bars in Glasgow throughout my whole time there. But travel had never come on the horizon. I don't think I'd been on holiday for years, decades probably, But just this long way round thing, it just lit a fire, and I thought, that's something I want to do. But I thought, I can't do that now. I was in the old bill by that point. I was like, well, I've got a career, I have my son. I was looking to settle down and buy my first flat.
Sure.
All this sort of stuff. So it's like, I've got commitments. I can't do this. And then fast forward a little bit more, sort of 2008, my mum she'd been fighting cancer for quite a long time, since about 99, 2000, I think she first got diagnosed with it. 2005, she got the 5-year all clear. My mum and dad emigrated to Spain just to have the good life, because, live your life, let's go for it. Sure. But every year her cancer would come back, and she'd have to come back to the UK, go for some treatment, and it seemed to quash it again. End of 2007, it had come back. She came for some treatment, but she just wasn't responding the way she had done to this course of treatment. So mum was getting more and more unwell. I had a flat by this point, so I had her living with me while she was going through the treatment. And we just spend a lot of time chatting.
Yeah.
Because I'd been right into the old bill, and working away in the police, and my folks had lived abroad, so we hadn't really spent a lot of time just chatting,
Sure.
So I suppose it's one of the graces of mum being ill, sadly. We did have a lot of time together on my days off, and I remember being sat on the couch with her in my flat chatting away, and Long Way Round came on the TV on like Dave, one of those channels. It just came on, and it was like a, oh yeah,
just brought it all back.
It's that.
Yeah.
So I started moaning like everyone does, saying it's all right for McGregor, Hollywood celeb, all that money, blah, 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 blah. And my mum just turned round and she said, look, you've always spoken about riding a motorbike, and you've never done it. And you've always spoke about wanting to do this trip, and you've never done it. And she said, don't get to my stage where, although we didn't think she was near the end, I think she pretty much realised it, because she said, don't get to my stage where you're facing the end and you regret what you've not done in life. We only get one chance that we're aware, so look after those that you love, but live your life. And it really was like one of these epiphanal, it's like a light bulb moment, And I was just like, right, okay, I'll do it. I literally picked my laptop up, I Googled, how do you pass your bike test? And by that point, I was 32 in 2008. So I could do direct access. I was like, right, I'll have some of that. Clicked it, booked it, bosh, done. And that was it. So by the time I did my direct access, my mum was really bad. She was very close to the end by this point, and she'd elected to go in a local hospice in Penge, St Christopher's Hospice in Penge, because she didn't want to pass away in my flat, bless her.
Sure.
So I remember the day I passed, I went straight to P&H in Crawley, because I bought a brand new Suzuki GSX-R 600, which is like a race bike. That was my first bike.
And you knew nothing about bikes at this
nothing.
point? Yeah.
Just
I want that one.
From the time that I wanted a motorcycle, I think Suzuki was in my head, probably because of that mate of my dad's.
Blue, yeah.
And then like seeing like the Isle of Man, and the only motorcycles I was ever exposed to was stuff on the TV. So it was racing. Occasionally there might be some motorcycle racing. So it's like I want a race bike, Suzuki race bike. Well, it was the Gixxer. It's iconic, GSX-R. So I went and bought myself a GSX-R 600. So I turned up, picked that up, got my two-piece Power Ranger outfit on, and I got on the bike. And I'll never forget that first ride from the dealership. I was in the slow lane of the M25, and I think I was probably doing like 53 miles an hour, but it felt like I was doing 553.
Yeah,
you know?
sure.
And the lorries are steaming by me, and I was just like, "This is amazing."
You can touch it. Yeah.
I remember getting to the hospice, and I walked into Mum's ward, saw her, sitting in her bed, and I shook the keys and I said, "I've done it. I've passed my test." So she gave me a great big hug, and then she just said, "Look, promise me you'll do that trip." So I did, and I think it was something like 5 or 6 days later, she lost the battle and passed away. Right. So it's like, right, I'm going to do this trip.
Yeah. So like she needed to know that you were doing what you spoke about.
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe she recognised I needed that nudge, and then she sent me another nudge as it would happen. In that, again, I thought I can't do it now because I had a career. I had a career in the Met. I had a flat by this point. My son was approaching his teenage years, and I was just like, I can't do that. I can't afford it for starters, so I can't do this yet. So I'd always thought I'll do it when I retire, like everybody does. And then one day at work, I was patrolling around Catford. I worked in like a pan-London unit.
Right.
It's predominantly public order based, but obviously there's not riots going on around London all the time. So when you were not doing that sort of thing, you were basically just driving around in the big riot vans.
Is it the thing that, because Ed always talks about doing like a 12-hour shift, is it that sort of a thing, or is it?
I met Ed through Diplomatic. I later moved on to Diplomatic Protection, and that's where Ed and I met.
Sure.
So before that, this was an unarmed position. It was just, although I think they are armed now, but in those days they weren't. So we were driving through Catford, southeast London, and a call came out on the radio to say a guy that was wanted for murder, he killed some people up at Elephant and Castle, he'd been seen in Catford, literally where we were. Right. So we all jumped off the van, went to look, and I went one way, a whole load of other lads went the other. And I'm literally like walking along, kicking the ground, like, it's boring. What am I going to have for breakfast? And this guy just came sprinting round the corner, straight towards me. And I thought, oh, that looks a possible contender. Yeah. But he was looking behind him because obviously my mates were all chasing him. I thought, right, I'll have you. So I'm getting down ready to do my best tackle on him. And he sort of sidestepped me, obviously, 20 odd stone. Yeah. He sidestepped me and I started running after him. And I was catching him. And I don't catch people in a foot chase. That just doesn't happen. But I was catching him. I thought, that's weird. And I could see him fiddling around with his waistband. So you're thinking, that's probably not healthy.
Yeah.
That's going to be something ouchy. And he just turned round with this biggest gun I've ever seen. And it turned out to be is it the Magnum 44, the Dirty Harry gun?
Oh, right.
I just remember he pulled that from his waistband and pointing it straight in my face and pulled the trigger. And I just heard it go click. So you're like, oh, wow. By that point, we've had all arrived by that point. His gun had obviously misfired. And it wasn't working. So, we managed to point out the error of his ways, and that was that. So, a few nights later, we've all gone for a curry as a bit of a debrief. Sure. And over a beer in the curry house, I just happened to mention that I had this dream about doing this trip. And one of my mates went, God, if ever you needed a kick in the danglies to go, right, now is the time to go for it, that's it. He was like, that's your mum saying, don't wait, go for it.
Yeah.
So
that's a live your life moment. I think very few people experience something like that in their life.
So literally the decision was made in a curry house in Leatherhead over a few cobras and poppadoms. I was like, right, okay, I'm going to ride around the world then. Yeah. And then the next thing was, obviously I was in the Met. This was about 2008, maybe 2009, early 2009 by this point. We had the Olympics coming in 2012, so I thought there's no way I'd be given a career break. In the Met, you could take up to 5 years unpaid leave, and then you wouldn't necessarily come back to the exact place that you were working.
Sure.
By that point, I was working in Diplomatic Protection.
That was
I just started Diplomatic Protection, same place as Ed.
Sure.
So the job couldn't guarantee that I'd walk back into that because it's quite a specialised role, but they would say there's a job for you. We'll find a place for you when you come back, but it's just unpaid leave. So I thought there's no way I'm going to be granted that until after the Olympics. So I thought I'll wait. That 2012, and then I thought Mum's birthday, 1st of October.
Yeah.
So that was just a date in my head. Right, that's the date I'm going to go then. So it was as simple as that. Okay, 1st of October 2012, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And over the next sort of 3 years, I just sort of planned. You don't need 3 years. Like anyone that's thinking of doing this, you definitely don't need 3 years to do a trip like that.
You did 3 years before you actually left.
Yeah.
Right.
I spent 3 years just, sorting visas out, looking at logistics, transit points, everything like that. You don't need that. If I made the decision to do it again now, well, I would be perfectly happy to get my passport, my phone, credit card, hit the road.
Yeah. Well, you were doing it with
need.
like old technology as well. You were doing it with like Garmin's and things. And I can't remember where it was. I was watching one of your videos this morning, and you said that the maps hadn't loaded in the Garmin. And I was like, God, everything's so much easier in the age of AI and Google Maps. And,
I mean, we just moved on from paper maps because sat navs in cars were pretty common. This is 2012. This isn't like 1706.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't as easy and convenient as everything is now. So I literally had Garmin's first ever motorcycle sat nav.
Right.
That's the one they sent me away with.
What was that like?
At the time, fine. Now, horrendous.
Yeah.
It's like really clunky.
Better than like
so
a book.
Slow.
Yeah.
A little bit better than a book. Yeah. I think I probably would have been better with a map. But again, we chatted before we started recording this about how life just throws you what at the time might feel like challenges or hiccups. But when you look back, you think, actually, that's an opportunity. So this Garmin sat nav, which would always get me lost. It would be so late in updating, so I'd miss exits and turnings.
Right.
But it would send me down a road, literally send you down a road that you hadn't meant to go down, and that just rewarded you.
End up seeing something beautiful that you never would have found. Yeah.
Or you end up getting lost, or the road becomes a dirt track, and I was on a sports bike, so you're like, oh, I'm not sure about this. So you might stop at the side of the road for a bit, and then someone comes by, and next thing you know, you're in someone's house or hut, and they're looking after you for the evening.
Yeah,
so,
fully.
Yeah, I think life is just like that. I think it's just go with it. Just go with it.
Yeah, which is great, I'm sure, in hindsight, but I'm sure there was maybe a couple of occasions when it was absolutely terrifying and you're like, what? Were there any like proper fuck-ups anywhere along the way? Yeah.
I very much think of that trip as split in two halves. Well, not even two halves, two sections. The first part, I left 2012, and within 7 weeks I was back.
Right.
Broken. I did most of mainland Europe, and then worked my way down into Morocco, and even Morocco was the first time I'd ever gone to Morocco, and I admit it, I was scared, but it was fun. It was something different. So I worked my way through Morocco down into Western Sahara, and then I got into a country called Mauritania, which is just below. So you've got Morocco, Western Sahara, and then Mauritania down there.
Right.
It's proper Sahara. It's just desert. And
I've only been to the old town. I've never in Morocco. I haven't been outside of there.
Right.
So
Gotcha. Morocco's awesome. I've been back loads of times since and take trips there and all sorts. I love Morocco. Brilliant place, lovely people. Mauritania was. Have you heard of Boko Haram? Do you remember the Nigerian schoolgirls got kidnapped?
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yeah.
That was a Islamic fundamentalist group called, I think it's Boko Haram, or I'm aware that's also a group, white a shade of pale and all that. But they were a fundamental Islamic terrorist group, still are to this day. So they'd kidnapped a whole load of Nigerian schoolgirls in Nigeria, and then they exploded from there all out through Africa. So by the time I was coming down through Morocco, they'd already sacked Timbuktu. They'd already gone into Mali and taken Timbuktu, and then they were working their way. I'm not sure if you know your geography. Mali's kind of here, and then Mauritania's sort of just below it to the west there.
And you were just cycling around, not a care in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being in a hotel in sort of southern Morocco. I was there for a couple of days. I was updating some work. I was doing some videos, and I was writing for a motorcycle magazine at that point about the trip. And the news was just full of this, this Islamic uprising that was coming through Africa, and it was heading my way. Like they were showing on the map and what way they were going, and they were coming from Mali into Mauritania over in the east. And I was thinking, oh god! And then people were messaging me on the various little traveller forums, overland forums that I was part of, saying, don't go, we've just come up that way. And I said, don't go, it's hell on earth. But then there were other people going, yeah, I was there 2 weeks, it was fine, I've done it, don't worry about it, you'll have a great time. So I think I'd had maybe 1 or 2 negative experiences voiced to me.
Sure.
All the others were positive. And I was kind of thinking, well, just go with it. Let's just go with it. But I just had this feeling, you know, I had this gut feeling, but I thought, no, you're just being nervous. That's all it is. It's nerves. You've never done this before. You're apprehensive. So I went for it, and literally from the get-go, from the border crossing from Western Sahara into Mauritania, you go from tarmac to just desert track. You go from like police in immaculate tunics and lovely to talk to and very helpful, to people who look like pantomime villains that are going to slit your throat. Literally straight away from that first border checkpoint, borders are split into two. Right? So you have the country you're leaving, the country you're entering, and there's like a no man's land in between that.
Right, okay.
Sometimes that can literally...
A little bit different than Europe then.
Yeah. But every border is like that. So even if you were to go, say, between Slovenia and Croatia, in fact, I think they've got rid of that border now, but there used to be a border there. Even there, there was literally a porta cabin, just a kiosk, like a tall kiosk.
Sure.
There'll be that in the Slovenian side, where you do your police bit and your immigration bit.
Sure.
It's 2 bits. Sometimes it's done by the same people. Sometimes it's 2 separate points. And then you move along a bit. It's about 5 yards, and then there's another one.
Gotcha.
And that's for the Croatian side. You do the police bit, you do the immigration bit, customs bit. That's that done. But other times, that distance can be hundreds of kilometres. Sometimes it's not.
It just stretches of desert.
Yeah. Or not. Like I remember coming into Mexico from the south. It was 400 kilometres before I got to the customs bit from where I crossed. So it's 400 kilometres of. You think you're in. You're on a road. There's people. There's towns. There's all sorts. But you're just in a no man's land. So you're never quite sure. But this bit in Mauritania at that point, I went through the first part, and then there was just a track that disappeared into the desert, like proper desert, sand dunes, desert, nothing there. Right. But in the distance, I could see like big antenna. So I thought, well, that's where I'm heading.
Right.
There were like tracks in the sand heading that way. I'll go there.
Sure.
And there were like local sort of hooky people, you know, looky men, who were saying, I'll guide you, I'll show you, I'll take you. And I'm like, well, I'm not paying anyone to take me. It's there. Yeah. I'll go. So I followed these tracks, and then as you went over the sort of dune, the track split in 2. Right. So there's one going left and one going right, and you're like, okay, well, and the sort of antenna thing's in the middle as these tracks disappear into the horizon. So well, okay. So I think I went right, and I'm on a sports bike on deep sand, so it's hard going. So I wasn't really concentrating too much of what was left and right, but I could see that there was I thought vehicles, there was cars, or there was something on the sides, but I'm concentrating trying to stay upright on this bike and paddle my way through the sand. And at one point, you know, it's really hot, I'm wearing a leather suit, I was a bit tired, and I stopped just to get a breather and see what was going on. And I remember looking to my right, and it was just blown up cars. You know, it looked like a war zone on my right, and just meaty stuff lying about the place. I was like, what is this? Where am I? What am I doing?
How many weeks into the trip were you at this point?
5 and a bit. 5 and a bit weeks, I'd say. Yeah, probably about 5. I think the whole trip, like door to door, from leaving to being back, was almost 7 weeks to the day. Right. And I had about just over a week, maybe 10 days before I made the decision to come back. So yeah, we're probably about 5 weeks in, I would think. Yeah. So I've just stopped and I thought, okay, this doesn't feel like it's the way. And I knew the other track was over there, over this sand. So I thought, well, I'll just go through the sand till I get to those tracks. So I start riding through this bit of sand, at which point some of these looky men who'd been following me and sort of laughing because I'm on this bike, they were jumping and going, no, stop. They were shouting something, and I heard it on the wind. It was Mines, mines. So I was like, oh, you get one of these realization moments where I'm like, oh, okay, that's why they're all blown up.
You're looking at bits around you. Yeah.
What, I don't know if they're camels or what they are, but there's bits everywhere, and it's like, I'm in a minefield. So this guy arrived, and he's like, you know, follow me, I'll get you out. So I had to pay him to get me out of the mine, and then he took me the right way, and eventually I get to the police bit. And they basically, they needed paying off. Yeah, of course. So that was the introduction really to Mauritania. Then we got chased by the Hilux trucks. There's like 3 Hilux trucks with what looked like terrorists, what I would say are terrorists with guns on the back and everything. They chased us to, oh God, what was the first town called? There's the first major town up in the north of Mauritania. I've forgotten the name of it. It wasn't Nouakchott. Nouadhibou, maybe? I think it's Nouadhibou. But I knew there was an overland campsite there. So this old South African guy that I'd met literally as we entered into Mauritania, we'd buddied up by this point. So we just bombed it, getting chased by these Hilux trucks straight down this, thankfully it was tarmac road, and we just bombed it straight into this town, Nouadhibou.
How long did they chase you for?
Felt like hours,
Yeah.
but I think it was probably like, I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, not far. But I remember I had on that sat-nav, thank God it worked, I had on the sat-nav where this campsite was. And we literally came around the block, and there was just this big Arab-looking guy stood in the road doing all this, and he was going like that, you know, pointing in. There's this big metal gate, so we just went straight in. And he shut the gate, and he was like pointing, quiet. So we turned all the engines off, and we just heard all these trucks go by, and he was like, bad men, very bad men. So we're like, geez, what have we got ourselves into? And we saw there was like an overland couple there. I think they were French or Belgian or something. And they were literally sat behind their 4x4, and she was bawling her eyes out. Like, what have we done?
Yeah.
So that was my introduction to Mauritania, and it sort of never really got any better. We didn't get chased like that again, but it was just every checkpoint, and there were checkpoints.
Were you fine after that, or was it a leave by night sort of situation? How did you get out of that?
We spent the night there.
Yeah.
And then the next day we got up early and left.
Right.
And yeah, we didn't see those trucks again. But there was literally, because of this Islamic fundamental sort of uprising that was coming that way, the Mauritanian government decided that they would put police and army checkpoints all along the two roads. There's like two main roads in Mauritania, or there was then. There was one that went right down the west side, the coast road, and then there was one that sort of went diagonally in across the whole country, and then there was another one, right along the very bottom. So my plan, I had to say I'm up here, and then you've got the ocean there.
Sure.
I'm here, and I have to get to this border checkpoint down here. So I thought I'll come down the coast road, and then I'll cut in along the bottom.
Right.
That's the plan.
And you were riding along the way with different people, the South African guy?
Just this South African guy. He was doing it on an old Euro, an old sidecar.
Great.
Motorcycle and sidecar.
Right.
So we're working our way down through the south, but there were just checkpoints. They could be sometimes they were like every 500 metres, other times it could be 20, 30 kilometres in between. But there was
just a bit of paperwork every time. Yeah.
It's a thing called a fiche. They call it a fiche. So what they used to say to you when you were travelling is just prepare multiple, like 50, 60, 70 sets of this bit of paper with all the same information. It'd have your name, your date of birth, your UK address, your passport number, all your passport details, and like how you came in, where you're leaving. That's pretty much it.
Is it ever the thing where you need to end up paying people off? I saw in Laos you had a bit of a problem, but I don't know, maybe in Mauritania if that was a similar...
Mauritania was just all bribes.
Right.
It's just all... But again, that was my first introduction to that sort of thing. It happened loads after, but I never paid
used to
after
it,
that.
Right.
But you don't pay, because if you pay, then they think, oh, this is a meal ticket. So you're making it worse for everyone else that's going to come after you.
Right.
Because if they get money off of one person, they're going to be, okay, well, we want more.
Check out
off
this
the
guy.
next one.
Yeah.
So every traveller that comes is now on the dinner menu. So you kind of, the attitude was, do not pay the bribes. But when it's your first experience of, being in Africa with somebody in a military uniform pointing and swinging an AK-47 in your face, sometimes not in a particularly nice fashion. Sometimes they'll do it with a smile, but other times they don't. You just pay the money and get out of there. But so that was happening all the time. And then I snapped my frame. In the middle of the desert, just the frame snapped.
It wasn't the men with guns that made you stop after 7 weeks. It was
a combination of things. Yeah. Eventually, we come to leave Mauritania to go into Senegal via. Oh, what is the name of that border checkpoint? Rosso. That was the name of the border checkpoint. And at the time, it had the reputation as the most corrupt border in Africa, which is...
You picked the fun ones.
Saying something. Well, that one, there was a nice road going to it. The other border option that we could have done had about 80 kilometres of pure sand to get to.
Which you'd already done quite a bit of at that point.
Not that amount on deep sand, no. I'd done, like, God, maybe a kilometre on sand, that initial point when I ended up in the minefield.
Yeah. What do you have to... Is it just like a slow crawl when you get to just sand?
No, I'm not an off-roader, believe it or not. I was just a road rider.
Sure.
So the secret to riding off-road is obviously off-road tyres with a big chunky tread.
Sure.
I didn't. I had road tyres. It's very low pressures, so that the tyres have as much contact with the sand as possible.
Sure.
And cane it. Like you want to be as fast as possible, sitting right over the back wheel to lift the front up, because the last thing you want is the front wheel to dig into the sand, because then you're going over the handlebars. So the idea is you want to sort of, like a speedboat through the water, you want the back to be low, the front to be high, and just...
Did you know that already, or did you need to learn that when you were out there?
I had to learn it.
Yeah.
I hadn't done any off-road at
Sure.
all. Because I thought
I'm doing like you come into sand dunes anywhere in the UK.
And I'm doing it on a sports bike.
Yeah.
You know, don't forget, I'm doing this on like a GSX-R 1000. That is meant to go around a racetrack.
Sure.
It's not meant to do off-road stuff. So, you know, I'd always thought the off-road stuff, I'll just deal with it when it comes, and I'll take as long as needs be. So with regards to those borders, there was that border that had like 70-80 kilometre deep sand to get to. Don't fancy that.
Yeah.
Or there's one with tarmac.
Right.
I'll go to the tarmac. Although it's the other end of the country, I'll take that one.
Sure.
So we went there, and long story short, we ended up getting taken by a gang at the border. We were working with the police, and they held us. Looking back, it was probably only for a few hours, but it felt like days, you know. But they just took us, and they just wanted to get as much money from us as they possibly could. But they were doing things like playing Russian roulette with the guns, and but they just did it all with a smile. You know, it's crazy to look back, because at the time I thought, I'm done. I'm not making it out of this. But you look back and you think, was it as bad as that? Is that just you know? Were they just like having a laugh with you? I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
I think it could have gone either way.
I don't know. I mean, I do remember meeting a Belgian guy. Once we'd been brought back into the border from this gang, once they decided they'd got as much money out of us as they possibly could, they took, I mean, give them their due, they took us back to the border, and they queued with us, and, you know, they translated, and we got through the border eventually. But I remember meeting this Belgian guy who saw me and this guy Roger, and he was like, "Are you okay?" So we told him what happened. And he just went off on one with these guys. He said, you know, you're supposed to be good Muslim men. He said, do you think Allah's going to be proud of what you're doing? And the second he said that, like, these guys' faces changed, and they just took him, and he disappeared. Never saw him again.
Right.
So I was like, oh God, like, what's happened?
That's not a good tactic. Yeah.
But you don't know. They might have just said something. They might have just put him at the back of the queue. I don't know. But I never saw the guy again, and that's in your head, you know. So,
and you've never found out since? No contact.
No.
Right.
Nothing. No. I mean, what can you do? What can you do? So eventually we end up getting put on a boat to cross this river from Mauritania across the river into Senegal. But we didn't have any passports or anything. They'd kept everything. Right. So I remember thinking, what are we going to do? Like, they've taken all our money. I've got no passport, no documents. What are we going to do when we get to blooming Senegal? Because Senegal's the start of proper West Africa. You know, it's like Mauritania is Arab kind of country. You get into Senegal, and it's
sort of changes. Yeah.
Yes, everyone's now really black. They're not Arab looking, and you start seeing the jungle in the distance. It's a bit greener. It's not just desert. So it's like, right, we're properly getting into Africa now. Like, what am I going to do? Yeah. But I just remember, as we're on this little boat, as we get to near the bank, this little speedboat thing came up behind, and it was these young lads that had just, you know, robbed us and kidnapped us for a bit, smiling away, and they just threw all our papers at us, and then turned around on the boat and went,
winding you up. Yeah,
you know, they were like 15, 16, they weren't old, and you know, I as part of the reason I think it plays on my mind, that I think, was it as bad as it felt at the time? I don't know.
I mean, had you got there without them, would have been a different story, I reckon. But
I don't know. But I just remember getting there, getting into Senegal, and it was quite late in the day by that point. So this guy Roger and I were just like, right, we'll pitch our tents in a field, you know, side of the road somewhere, and then we'll attack this again the next day. And I remember phoning my wife that night, and it cost a fortune, obviously, 2012. I remember phoning my wife in tears and just going, I don't think I can do this. I think I'm done.
Yeah.
And you know, because I had a snap frame on the bike, got literally hardly any money left. The only money I had left was what was wrapped up in like waterproof bags, sandwich bags, just loads of them together inside my camel pack in the lining of my rucksack. It's the only reason they never found it, is because it was hidden there. So I had money there, and that is it. And I remember my wife just saying, look, just if you can, take a few days. Just take a few days somewhere, get your head together, and then we'll have another chat.
Sure.
So we decided, myself and Roger were going to go to Dakar, which was like the main city in Senegal. He needed to get some visas for his journey. So we went to Dakar. We found a place to stay. But, you know, Dakar certainly wasn't this oasis that everyone had made it out to be.
Right.
The part of town we were staying in anyway, there was, you know, I just remember riding along the road, and you know, there's people lying at the side of the road, dead and dying. And, you know, it's just like, what are we doing?
I think it's the thing when you drive around countries like that, you don't tend to run into the touristy destinations.
That's the beauty and the curse, I think, of overland travel. You're not flying into an airport. You're not getting a bus along a road to the touristville.
I've done it around Europe, and I think it's the best way to travel, but I've not done it around.
You see the real country, you see the real people.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see it warts and all, you know, and certainly that path that we took to get to this sort of hotel place that we're staying in took us through some pretty horrific sights, you know, and people just stepping over corpses and literally at the side of the road. And you're like, really? I thought Dakar was like, I thought it was like the Paris of West Africa.
Dubai or something. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. Not the bits that we saw. But anyway, we had about a week or so there whilst Roger was getting his visa sorted. And I just sort of, I made the decision, enough's enough, I'm done. Right? I thought I had enough money that I could probably get to South Africa. But then I was like, well, once I'm there, I'm out of money. What do I do?
And you didn't have any flights back or anything? You didn't have a time frame to get there?
No. It's just, we're going. That's it.
Yeah.
So I made the decision, right, I've got enough to ship the bike back and me get back. And then I'll get my head together, get back to work, save up some money, see what happens.
Sure. Go to a nicer place next time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So I end up back in the UK, and as luck would have it, you know, we spoke earlier about opportunities that life throws at you. Dunlop, who'd given me the tyres to do the trip, said, look, seeing as you're back, come and do the NEC bike show.
Right.
So I was up on the Dunlop stand, and this guy came up and said, you know, been following your trip, what happened? So I told him the story, and he said, oh, right, well, he said, you know, I'm the CEO of this company. Next year or this year is our 25th anniversary, and we were looking for a marketing vehicle. He said, we're all motorcycle daft, and I thought it was you. He said, we were just a way to offer you a sponsorship deal. So by that point I was like, well, look, I really can't say if I'm going to do this trip again. I don't know what's happening. So he said, look, take my card, think about it, give me a shout if things change. So I did. Fast forward a month or two, it's now early January. I'm on, I think, the Chinese embassy one night duty.
What year is this?
This would have been early 2013 now, January 2013. It's freezing cold. I'm thinking, what am I doing? You know, like 5 weeks ago, I was in the Sahara Desert on the trip of a lifetime. What am I doing? So you shouldn't. We're not supposed to get your phones out when you're stood in an embassy somewhere in police uniform. But I thought, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, bugger it, I'm doing it. So I got the guy's business card out of my wallet, and I emailed him there and then. I just said, I want to talk. Can we chat about options? And he replied almost straight away, because he was actually in Houston opening up their world headquarters of their office. So he was like, I'm here with the actual owner of the business. He's had a few already. I've buttered him up.
Yeah.
He wants to talk. So that was that. We made a date to have this meeting. I met up with them. They put a proposal on the table, you know, X amount of money. I thought, right, okay, with that I can get to. I know I can get to Australia with that.
And this was what, to write about it, or to just keep doing what
Just
you
keep
were doing,
doing.
just vlogging about it?
Yeah, just get back and do the trip. Obviously, they wanted their corporate logo on the website and videos, all the usual sort of stuff. Branding, basically.
So how long were you out then? How long had you taken off between?
So I got
the first
back.
Trip and...
I think I landed back on the UK on my son's birthday, 3rd of December, 2012, and then I left again on the 8th of May, 2013.
Right.
So almost 6 months I've been back in the UK. Obviously, during that time, I'd had to approach things with my missus, who, Nikki was literally picking curtains because she thought I'm now home and we're going to set up our life together and stuff. So I had to say, hang fire, I might be going again.
Got a sponsorship.
yeah. But bless her, Nikki, the person she is, she would never stand in the way, and she knew, what the trip meant. So she stood by me, and that was it. Yeah, I left 8th of May. This time I missed out Africa, and I was supposed to be doing a load of the Middle East as well. The things, obviously things in the Middle East weren't good anyway at that point. So I just thought to myself, right, I think I've used about 8 of my 9 lives now, and the thought of getting myself into bother by going to places like Iraq, Syria, you're warned not to go there, and I knew people were still travelling there and having a great time and no problems, but I just thought, if I was to go to one of these countries and get in bother, and then our military then is to come in to try and save my bum, after a conscious decision I've made, one of them gets hurt, I'm like, that doesn't sit well with me. So I was just like, right, I'll miss all that out, and I amended the trip. So this time I did sort of Scandinavia up and all the way to Nordkap, top of Norway, as far south as sort of Romania, then across into Moldova, then into Russia, right across Russia, and worked my way around from there. So that second leg, the first bit where I had all these issues, the second bit was just nothing like that. The second bit was how I imagined world travelling on motorcycle to be. There were problems, there were issues, but the people I met were fantastic. But I had a different attitude. I very much had an attitude of, we'll just deal with whatever comes our way. I think I had a police mentality before, where I'm risk assessing everything, and I think that probably meant I wasn't as warm and open to some people, especially in places like Mauritania, where my risk meter's through the roof. I think there's a thing, I think they call it the Polaris box. My attitude affects your attitude, which affects my attitude, which affects your attitude. And if you have a bad attitude at start, or at any point of your interaction, if there's a negative reaction from either of you, it's just going to spiral its way down.
I'd almost call it luck. I've never heard of Polaris box, but that's an interesting way of putting it.
It's all about conflict resolution, basically. Which we used to get in the old bill all the time. Like the last thing
experience definitely came into.
I think it helped, and it also hindered me initially in that first bit. The second section, the second stage, I just went into everything with not just blind ignorance, but more of a smile, and I was just open to whatever's coming my way, because I think I just resigned myself to, I'm doing this now. I've got the option to do it. So I'm finishing it either myself with the bike, dragging the bike, carrying the bike, or I'm coming back in the box. But I'm gonna give this everything I've possibly.
I think it's part of what you're looking for when you world travel like that anyway. But I find amongst the people I know who ride motorbikes and do travel, it's one of those things. My partner always says she's terrified I'm going to get myself into a situation that's finally the last one. And I'm like, but that's exactly the thing. For some reason, I'm one of those people who I put myself in those situations, but there's always a way out of it. I've got a sister, and she's the unlucky one. She'll always end up in the trouble. But for some reason, if you just know how to get through it, and especially having been through those situations at the start in Mauritania, I'm sure you were prepared for whatever came next.
It was just... It kind of feels a bit foolhardy to say it now, but it was just like, what will be, will be. Let's just do it. Let's just go it. It's just, I don't think I've ever felt as low in my life as I did when I came back after Africa. Just that feeling of being a complete failure, having promised my mum that I would do it, having, put Nikki, my wife's life on hold, all my family and friends' lives on hold. All these people that were worried about me, what I was going to do, and having like literally just blown that away and just given up, because I kind of, once I was home, I was like, you just gave up. You should have just kept going. But
now that you have, do you see it differently? Because it doesn't sound like a failure to me. It sounds like you went through a lot and came out the other side, and maybe it was a couple of months later, like that thing we were talking about. Is it might have seemed bad at the time, but 6 months later or so, you were back out there, ready to go.
This is the thing. Again, it's these opportunities life's thrown at you. You know, like if I hadn't given up and come back, I would never have met Martin McDonald, the guy from that company that offered me the sponsorship. Maybe they would have offered it. Maybe they would have reached out via email. I don't know. But the fact that I did come back home and went to the NEC on that Bridgestone stand meant we met face to face, which then started the wheels rolling that took me down the second way. So I don't know. I feel like I gave up. I look back now and go, I don't think it was anywhere near how I remembered it and felt like it was at that time. I don't think it was as bad as it felt at that time. But it did feel that way to me at the time. So I dealt with things the way I did at that point. The second time was just awesome. It was just everything I wanted it to be. It was just amazing. Loved it. And it changed me forever.
What particularly? Was it Russia?
Russia's a big one.
Yeah. I keep talking about that at the moment. This is the thing is, like, I've got a friend who's a musician, and he did this night in London last year, and it was in... You hear about these places and you see them in films, but it was like a private club, and it was... I to this day, I don't know what it's called, but we were quite literally there with lots of rich Russian children, most likely the children of oligarchs, in this private venue that you couldn't get to any other way. It was in this back door, and you went up to this penthouse suite that was just gorgeous, and the woman who ran the night, she is in charge of loads of music festivals in Russia. So what she does is she travels around the world and goes to all the biggest music festivals, and she'll go to like the smaller tents as well and find the up and coming musicians and just pull them together. And she's been responsible for finding loads of different people. And I had a really lovely night, and it was sort of like in the middle, you know, a year ago, it was in the middle of everything that's happening in Ukraine at the moment. And I was like, oh, Russian people are the same as us. They just speak Russian, but you get all this news that makes you feel like they're the enemy. I was speaking to a friend once, and I was talking about this, and I was saying, I want to go to Russia. I just want to hang out with Russian people. And they said, they're the enemy. Russia's the enemy. And I was like, no. We're talking about governments versus people. The people are the same as you. They just happen to speak a different language and have been born in a different place.
100%.
So I've been really tempted at the thought of going there now, just to spend time with some people.
You can still travel, and I know people are still traveling in Russia now, but it's a lot tighter than it was. You used to be able to just go in and you could have I think up to 3 months to travel. Now you're talking days. If you're overland
probably
travel,
limit to where you're allowed to go.
Oh, it's like 5 days, a week, whatever it is. They want you in, through, and out. I get that. I totally agree with you there. You know, being in the old bill, being in the police was the first sort of light bulb moment for me. In that, oh, hang on a minute, the news and the newspapers and the media, they're not on our side. They're not telling me how it is. They're feeding me what they want you to think and how you want to feel.
So how many people go and travel like you did as well? How many people see that in person to realise, oh, this is not what they're telling us?
Yeah, exactly.
No one.
People, especially... I might do your legs here. I don't know. The BBC was one of the worst. You know, like what you would get fed from the BBC, and we're always brought up to think the BBC is like a stalwart of integrity, and what they say is the truth. Oh man, no, it's not. It's so politically biased.
I think people are starting to see that now more than ever
with social media. But again, now social media, you can't. I love social media initially because it was the chance for like the common person, you, me. We could get a phone and we could get on social media and go, look, here I'm in London. This is a Londoner talking. This is what life's like. Not that. This is what life's like. I think traditional media has caught up with all that now. And you know, you have to be very skeptical with what you see anywhere now.
It's like they say with AI. I think it's a tool that can be used, but to fully rely on it. It's that thing where Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg goes away, and they did that study where they found out they found out that it is 100% true that loads of young girls across the world are hurting themselves and killing themselves because of what they're seeing, and they're comparing themselves on social media. So it can be a horrible thing if you listen to it all the time and it's your only source of information, or the BBC. But if you can use it as a tool, or if, you know, as my partner does, you sit and you watch videos of puppies, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I know. Again, I think maybe these days, I think we have to be. There's an element of personal responsibility. I think, in that, you know, the algorithm will only send you things that it thinks you're interested in. So if you're looking at political stuff, it's going to send you political stuff.
Sure.
If you're looking at puppies, it's going to send you puppies.
Yeah.
You know, so of all kinds. So it's just, I think we have, as people, we have a bit more personal responsibility these days. And I think you need to be aware that just because there's a certain brand behind this video that you get sent doesn't mean that is gospel. You know, it's like.
So you figured that out a bit early then?
Yeah, I figured that out very early doors through my experience in the old Bill, in that, you know, I would deal with something at the coalface. You deal with a situation there and then, you know, and you'd be like, oh my God, geez, I almost can't wait to see this in the news, just to see, you know, what led up to what I dealt with it. You know, the bit I dealt with, what happened as a result of that, or what led up to this situation that you end up dealing with. You watch it on the news and you're like, that's not what happened. Yeah. Or there was a load more people than you're showing, or there was nowhere near that amount of people that you're showing, you know. And
something I talked about with Ed actually is the way they spin, and I'm curious to hear your perspective on this as well, is the way police news is spun. I can't remember who it was. It was last year. It was a very big name. It was a young black man in London who was shot dead by the police, and I'd seen in one smaller, it might have been the Sun or something like that, but in one smaller newspaper, and there was marches going on at the time, because I think the police here and the news here is heavily influenced by what happens in America. So people go, oh, one bad police officer in America means all the police everywhere are bad. And this one particular man happened to be a gang member, and his car, his license plates were linked to a shooting that had happened like a week prior or something. So they were chasing this car down because it was linked to this other situation. And this guy ended up being shot dead. And people didn't understand that, and they didn't see that in the news, and they didn't understand that. The police were on their side. And then that happened in all these marches, and I think his name is still glorified. And it's a horrible situation to have happened generally, but people then go, oh, very black and white, police bad, this man good. And it's a grey situation. It's obviously different depending on the circumstances. And
you also look at the media. You never used to be allowed to comment on a case that hadn't yet come to fruition at court. That's where the UK used to be fantastic at that.
Sure.
Because America...
It's a great idea, yeah.
America used to televise court cases, and, you know, it'd be like a soap opera in the build-up to it, and all through the court case. In the UK, you know, you can't even have a camera in a court. That's why you get the drawings of people, because you're not allowed cameras in there. But it was to stop trial by media. Right. It was to stop, because if you have you'll have a jury, well... They're trying to get rid of that now. Yeah, topical. But you know, you'd have a jury, and the idea was not to taint that jury. The jury would hopefully not have sat there and read things in the newspaper or watched things on the TV and already formed up an opinion. You know, they would have to rely on that evidence that is given to them in the court.
Yeah, and cases fall apart all the time like that now, because people go and they flip the TV on at the hotel that they're staying at. The jury will end up seeing something they're not supposed to, and it ruins the whole thing.
Well, now it's... As soon as something happens, it's all over the media, and the media just don't seem to be restrained in any shape or form. And they start just making spurious allegations, and you know, like people are convicted before they've even got to court or even been charged. And that case that you're talking about, as soon as the guy was found guilty, well, the media then have to give you all the evidence. They're very selective of what evidence they put in the paper. That guy was the guy, from what I believe. Could be wrong, but from my understanding, that guy is on CCTV driving in that car up to this club. He's wearing the same clothing, I believe. He goes into the club and he's on CCTV shooting people in the nightclub. He then comes out, gets in the car, boom. That car is then stopped. I think he even drove at the officer. So what you need to remember, no copper is going to shoot a member of public unless there's an imminent threat to life, or they perceive there to be an imminent threat to life, because their life is over the second they even put their hand on their gun. They're restricted. You're going to have a court case. effectively you could end up being charged with manslaughter or murder, even if you did what you thought was totally right at that time. It's down to a jury to decide, you know. So no sane person is going to put themselves in that position. You need to, people need to sit back and think about this. You know, it's the police aren't the bad guys. You will always get some wrong-ins.
Of course.
Always.
Yeah.
It's human nature, you know.
Classic cases, but I think that's the thing, is something like the Rodney King riots in America. People go, oh, it's the same. It's the same thing all the time. And something like the BBC that reports on that, and, you know, puts the media into the court case, they never backtrack because they can't be found to have been fallible at any point in time. They go, no, we were always right, and maybe here's some different circumstances, but it doesn't mean we were wrong. It just means there's more information. It's like, no, it was always the same information. You just lied about it.
Yeah, or selective with what you show and tell people about. I mean, it's such an emotive subject, isn't it? Because the police were blatantly racist back in 70s, 80s. Of course they were. Yeah. I mean, and it was not just, you know, black people at the brunt of that. Look at the miners' strikes. You know, they're white northerners, and, you know, the police treated them horrifically during the miners' strike. It's just...
There's that famous... I was looking up... different instances that the news in Britain, it's very easy to find in America, but the news in Britain lying. And there's the very famous case, I can't remember where it was, but there was the riot, the miners' riot, and very famously the BBC reversed the footage. So the police started throwing rocks or something at the miners beforehand, or they attacked them first, and then they responded to defend themselves. And very famously the BBC reversed this footage of this event. Can't remember what it was called. And they've sort of covered that up in history. It was found out, and then it's sort of been suppressed.
Nothing surprises me anymore. It really doesn't. But, you know, the people I've worked with in the uniform were salt of the earth. They were lovely people. You know, you know one of them, and that sums up the vast majority of people I've worked with. Good, decent people who, you know, do that particular job for the right reasons. And you know, it's a hard job. It's a really hard job. I'm not saying we're perfect, you know, certainly they are not perfect. There's some bad apples, but they're very few and far between.
Yeah, I mean, how often did you come across an instance like you were chasing this guy and he pulled a gun on you? You know, you never know when that's going to happen.
I think people would be very surprised the amount of firearm calls that are in London. You know, every day there's, you know, London's split into 32 boroughs. So when you're in the police, you'll work one borough, or like I worked Southwark initially. I used to work from Peckham on the 999 teams. Well, that borough is so busy they split it into two. Right. So you know, although it's 5 mile by 3 miles, not a massive area. It's so busy that you have two main centres there to operate out of. And I would say, if not every day, every couple of days there'd be a firearms call would come out. So it's...
Were you always in London?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I joined the Met and stayed there. Did that for about 18 years, I think, 19 years. So there's a lot going on. Yeah. There really is a lot going on. It's not running gun battles by any shape or form. Of course. But there is a lot going on in London. So, you know, you're not just dealing with Mrs. Miggins locking herself out of a shed. You very rarely ever deal with that. It's stabbing after stabbing after stabbing. Yeah, of course. Mental illness is massive. I
was saying to someone the other day, a friend of mine, I've never been to another city that has any knife, what do they call them? The bins that you put them in. And London is just covered in them. If people have never seen that before, people have never been here. It's just every single church or school has got a knife bin outside. Yeah. I've never seen that in any other city in the world.
But again, it's not the people that are using the knives that are putting the knives into these knife bins. Yeah. It's like all these gun laws. The people that are using the guns aren't going, oh, hang on a minute, we can't go and shoot them because we haven't got a license. Yeah. It's a bit ridiculous. I appreciate the reasoning behind it and the thoughts behind it. But if someone's going to use a gun, they're going to use a gun. Sure. They're going to get a gun. You can get guns. No problem. It's a difficult one, and I'm not paid to make those decisions.
No. Yeah. So you were, well, I guess semi-prepared by the time that you started, because you left. You came back for a little bit as well, right? Yeah. So where's that in the timeline?
Well, how do you mean when I came back?
When you came back to the police.
Okay. Yeah. So I finished the world trip. I think it was end of June or July 2014. I came back, and that was hard. That was really hard because I changed as a person a lot.
Turned into a hippie.
kind of, Lee. Kind of, yeah. I survived in the old Bill by. I think I'd make my mind up about somebody very quickly. Mm-hmm. You know, like, can I trust this person? Can I not trust this person? Are they a threat? Are they not a threat? You just make assumptions about people very, very early on, mm-hmm. and I think that gets drilled into you through experience. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe giving someone the benefit of the doubt, and they turn out to be the wrong one you're looking for, or they try and hurt you, or something like that.
So you were always coming into it sort of expecting the worst.
On the defense, all the time, and expecting the worst from people, I think. Just because that's the job. That job just, it made me like that. I became very skeptical, not very trusting of people I didn't know, and that changed on the trip. You know, on the trip, I was forced to rely on total strangers, and I was forced to rely on people I'd never met before, who didn't speak my language, who looked differently to me, who had a totally different way of life than me, worshipped different gods than I believed in. You know, like, well, I'm not even a religious man, but you know what I mean. Like, it was just, it opened my eyes to people are good. You know, like, not what I'd come to think, in that people are always lying to me and people have always got something to hide. No, that's just the little slice of people that you end up dealing with in that role as a police officer at that time. You know, people are in, most of the time when you're called, people are in pretty extreme situations. So yeah, they're going to be defensive. They're not going to be thinking logically a lot of the time. Sometimes they do have things to hide. Other times, you know, the mother is concerned for her son, or she is trying to cover up for her son, you know, and I get that. I'm a parent now. I understand that. Yeah. But the trip just, I don't know, it rounded off my edges, and it just, I just changed. I kind of, I don't know, what's the best way of describing it? Everything used to be very, very cut and dry to me. I'll use the expression, everything was very, you know, black and white. There's right, there's wrong, boom, boom, boom. That's it. There's laws in place, and if you don't adhere to those laws, you're in the wrong.
Sure.
Right? Just, I don't care. I've got to deal with this. You're in the wrong. That's that. Done. Everything could be boxed.
Sure.
Life's not like that. People aren't like that. And I came back just with a different outlook on life. And I also came back, and everyone who had been moaning about stuff before I left, they're still moaning about the same stuff. And it would infuriate me, because I'd almost be screaming in my head, go, if you don't like it, change it. Like, you're the one that's, the only person that's stopping you from changing these things is you. So change it, you know, and I just found it really frustrating and, what's the word, restraining? Is that the right word? You know, having to come back into that role as a police officer, back into this world where, you know, there was cut and dry, and there was right and wrong, and you couldn't use discretion. You know, that those days have gone now, and I think I knew once I was back, this wasn't for me anymore. This just wasn't for me. So I was very much, you know, I was in diplomatic protection. So thankfully, you're not dealing with normal things a copper deals with. You're a glorified security guard for embassies and consulates and things like that. With a gun. That's basically what your job is. So in my head, I was like, you know, I can see out my last, whatever it is, 10 years or whatever. I can see this out, and we'll just get this done, and life will happen after it, you know. Sure. I'll enjoy my time off.
I'm going to pause you there. I want to ask you more about the next bit of the trip. I'm going to run to the toilet.
Yeah, no problems. No worries.
Yeah, what was that like then to come back? Because I imagine it wasn't first thing, come back, oh, this is no longer for me. Especially because you'd had that experience you were talking about. And was that when you came back from Mauritania, you'd made all these decisions and decided that it wasn't for you to come back to the life you'd had before? It sounds like when people leave a small town and they come back and people are complaining about the same things. I feel like that's the most common analogy.
I wasn't like that after Mauritania, but I was definitely like that once the trip was done. So it's like, you know, tick, that's it, done.
Yeah.
I very much had those feelings. It's weird. Now I've done it, a lot of the big overland travellers who are like these superstars of overland travel. You know, they were the people, the poster people of motorcycle and overland travel that I'd heard about and got to know before I did the trip. No one had ever spoke about post-trip blues. Right. No one had ever spoke about life after the trip.
Right.
It was all, how do you make that happen and what's it like when you're away? No one ever spoke about after. Apart from one guy I met before I went, he was like, you know, just be ready for life after. You know,
after the
trip, after the dream,
all the different countries, not just this first stint. Yeah, because it was your idea for your dream for so long.
Yeah, life after, your whole life up until the trip is how to make that trip happen. This trip that's what you're aiming for. That's it. That's the dream. Yeah. What happens after you've lived the dream? Then what? You know.
And what did?
Right back to where I was before. Yeah. You know, you're back into Groundhog Day. You're back doing what everyone does. You know, go to work, deal with all the mundanity. Yeah. The mundane nature of everyday life.
Sure.
That most people have to deal with. Get up, go to work, keep the house running, pay your bills. Just life, right? And
was it strange also being back in the house with your son and your not wife yet but partner at the time?
Yeah, I mean my son, I didn't live with my son. He lived back up in Glasgow, so it wasn't like my son had been there every day with me anyway. Sure. But you know, my son had loved it because all through the trip he's at school and he's now like a teenager now, 14, 15, 16. And his mates were just like, your dad's the coolest thing in the world, because they're sitting on YouTube and watching the vids. And
was that annoying to him?
No, he loved it. Yeah. I've asked that of him. You know, he's 28 now. 28, 29. And, you know, I said to him, you know, how was that hard being at school? Like, did you get grief for it? And he was like, no, it's just, you know, all my mates loved it. You were just like the cool. You were a copper with a gun, and then you rode a motorcycle, and you went and did this amazing trip around the world. He was like, you were like the best dad ever. So, I was like, all right, okay, cool. What were we talking about there? Oh yeah, life coming back. It was just, I really did struggle. I put my hand up. I struggled massively. It also timed with, I developed a heart condition that I didn't know about. Right. So when I came back to get back into the old bill, obviously to get my firearms license, there's a fitness test that you'd have to do, and there's a beat test element of it, and it's easy. It's like 7.6. It's nothing. Even as a big fat bloater, you can do it, and I couldn't do it. I was struggling to get to like level 5, which is,
and this was what because of something that happened on the trip.
I thought it's just because I'd sat on my arse for a year and a half on a motorbike and done nothing. But I found the more I trained, the worse I was getting. So I was getting, rather than improving on the beep test, I was getting worse and worse and worse.
Right.
And this was now starting to have a big impact, because you only get a certain amount of times that you can do this before they go, you're not getting it, off you go. So you lose your firearms license, which means you end up back on borough, which is a horrible place to be. 999 response teams. Sure. That is hard work, the people that are dealing with that. Been there, done that, got the T-shirt, never wanted to go back to it. So I thought, I'm going to have to speak to my doctor and just, what's going on? Spoke to the doctor, got fitted with the old ECG. That showed that I had an arrhythmia. I'd developed an erratic heartbeat. Right. So it's almost a bit of a saving grace, because it now means, there is something wrong. We've got to get this fixed. But it meant they put me on, like, I had to have a cardio version, which is basically just when they defib you. You know, they zap you with the zappers.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So they stop the heart and restart it. But in order to do that, they have to thin your blood in case that dislodges a clot when they zap it. So there's like a 6-month period or something where you go on blood thinners. And then they put you on beta blockers just to slow everything right down.
Yeah. What did that do to your mental state at the time?
Totally mixed up my head. These beta, it is a side effect of some of the medication. And I did not react well to it. So I'm already in a bad place.
You're in the post,
I'm already a little bit depressed. I wouldn't have said I had depression, but I was just a bit, what is the point of all this? You know, like, what next kind of thing. And then you add to that this medication, and for about 8-9 months, I was just in a bad place. I came off the medication. I'm like, I don't care. I'm not taking that anymore. Didn't tell him, just I'm not doing that. Sure. And I started to feel a lot better. So I had the cardio version, got back to work, and for the next, I think 5 years, that was me just back at work. Yeah. And just thinking, okay, this isn't optimal. It's not great, but I did a lot of overtime, like our friend next door. I did a lot of overtime, which allowed me to have a good life.
Sure.
And I had started a motorcycle tour company, so on my time off, I would take people away on motorbikes and get my kick out of that. I was developing a YouTube channel, all this sort of things. So work was just work for me. It was no longer my life, which it had been before. The police had been my life. Now it was just a job.
Sure.
It's just turn up, do your thing, get your wage, that's that. Enjoy life outside of work. So I think I had a much healthier balance now. And then what happens in 2020? I've done a motorcycle course within the police to ride the motorbikes in the diplomatic side.
Sure.
Passed that literally on the Friday. On the Monday, turned up for work and went in to see the sergeant in the base to say, I'm here, Sarge, what am I doing today? And he went, somebody's coming to speak to you, you're being served. It's called a 163, which is like a formal notice of investigation. So I was like, what? And apparently another copper had, it's like internal affairs.
Okay.
They'd contacted them and said, this guy's a serving police officer, he's got a YouTube channel, and here he is on a motorbike riding fast, and he blurs his speed.
Right.
Which hands up, I did. You know, I did. So that's that. I was under investigation for that, and long story short, the inspector that was in charge of that, she'd never met me before, but she didn't like me. So she basically told me I can take 2 years to investigate this, which means I'm restricted duty for 2 years, can't earn any overtime. I wasn't allowed to have a YouTube channel, no social media presence whatsoever. Not only for that 2 years, but she stipulated I would never be allowed to have any social presence.
And you'd been building this up for...
I've been building this up for...
How many?
8 years,
right.
9 years. I think I had about 30,000 followers, 40,000.
It seems like you had
YouTube.
quite a big support from the start, because you had people who were buying merch and things from you that allowed you to finance yourself through these trips as well. Is that right?
On the world trip, no, there was about, I think by the end of the world trip, I think I had about 600 subscribers on YouTube, so not a lot. But what did help on that trip was when I got to Australia and the sponsorship money was pretty much gone, I sort of said to people that were following, I think I had about 4,000 or 5,000 people on Facebook that were following. I just said, look, thanks very much for all your support. Looks like this will be the end of the day, the end of the road now. Thanks, cheers to that. And all these people got in touch and said, no, like you can't stop. You've got to keep going. How can we help? So I don't like the idea of handouts. So I wasn't going to do. It wasn't buy me a coffee, but there was a thing like that back in the day. But I said, look, my plan is to write a book and do a DVD of DVDs back in the day. So how about you can pre-order that if you want. You can pre-order the book, pre-order a DVD. I'll use the money from that to fund the trip, see how far I get with it, and then you'll get a book or a DVD at the end of it once I've done it. If I don't end up doing it, I'll pay you back.
Sure.
Or however, I'll get back to work, knock my pan out overtime, I'll pay you back. So I did that, and over the course of about 2 weeks, it raised like 8-9 grand. It's an incredible amount of money came in, and that allowed me to do the next stage, get the flight across to South America and start working my way up. By which point the company that initially sponsored me, they kind of went, well, hang on, we'll match what they're giving you, so that means you'll get to Texas and do that. Basically allowed me to finish the trip. So when people were amazing. The support was just phenomenal. But it did mean once it was done, it's like, right, now I have to write a book. Now I've got a DVD, but you've done the trip by that point.
How did you pick the locations that you wanted to go to?
Wow. Initially my plan was I was doing it on a sports bike. So there were places that I wanted to go to anyway, like Mongolia. After seeing Long Way Round, I was like, I want to go to Mongolia. I wanted to see Russia. My dad was working in South Korea by this point, so it's like, I'd love to go and see my dad on a motorbike in South Korea. Always fancied Japan. So I basically thought, I'm doing it on a sports bike. Why not go to all the racetracks around the world, from like out of Formula One? Well, the motorcycle version is called MotoGP.
Okay.
And then you have It's a slightly different derivative of that called World Superbikes.
Yeah.
So they, through their yearly championship, they have all these different circuits that they go to. So I got this massive map on my wall, and I pinned where all these circuits were. And then I was also doing it for charity this trip. One of them was Born Free.
Right.
So I looked at all the different projects that they had and plotted the ones that I really fancied going to see. So plotted them up. And it just sort of, certainly maybe not so much over in the Americas, but the rest of the world, there was just like, I literally tied a bit of string around like London, start point, and just wound my way around all these pins. And there was this route. So it was like, that's my route then, that'll do, you know. Between the places I wanted to see, the circuits, the projects, that's how it sort of started, really. And then obviously once Africa went a bit wibble in the Middle East, I took that out of the equation and amended the route a little bit. Yeah. And that was it.
And I'm sure it changed as you went on as well. And you said you went down different routes and you end up, what's it like? I did a very short stint on a bike, a road bike bicycle. It was in COVID. I think it was the second lockdown, and I was living in Glasgow at the time. I lived there for 5 or 6 years. Went to drama school there, and I had a friend who was in Leeds. And so I decided I was going to ride down. My partner was off to Poland for a little bit. She was going to go ride horses because it was out in the countryside, and there was still this horse thing going on for a couple of weeks. So I was like, right, I'm going to get all this stuff on my bike, and I was going to cycle down. And I actually brought loads of camping gear and stuff with me, a little cooker, and I think I had a hammock. And I didn't end up using any of them once because I ended up staying in different hotels that were in renovation, so they'd let me sleep in the mid-renovation employee rooms and things like that. And it was one of the things I found. I was only on the road for like 5 days total. I was just out there every day, but it's one of those things that you find as you do just run into people and meet people, and then you crash at someone's place. And now there's couch surf, which is really good, where you pay like £1 a month and you can stay at different people's places for nothing. It was the very first night I went and stayed with this guy, and he had just been to Russia, and he brought back loads of Russian vodka, and he made me dinner, and he made me food for the next day, and he didn't even have a couch for me to stay on. He had an entire room, so I had my own bed and my own space, and it was gorgeous. And I got there and I was knackered because I rode way further than I was expecting the first day. Got all the way to England the first day from Glasgow, and we just stayed up until about 3 or 4 in the morning just drinking this Russian vodka. And then he started to, it was really funny because at about 4 o'clock in the morning, we'd been having a really nice conversation, but he had all these really hardcore Brexiteer opinions that he brought out last minute. And I was like, I don't disagree with you about some things, but I don't fully agree with you about other things. And it just became politics. And I was like, I think it's time for me to go to bed. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, I've got to keep riding today. And I was up all night drinking vodka. So that day was particularly hard. But it is just that thing, even in the middle of COVID, where you meet people on the road and you can stay at different people's places. And
people are always interested in you, right? They want to know where you've come from and what's life like where you're from. Particular places like Russia, where we're told they're the enemy, they're told we're the enemy. You know, and people are people. People are decent wherever you go. And I found with Russian people in particular, they were like a brick wall initially. You know, Russians were really standoffish initially. But after about 5-10 minutes of you being there and trying to get some sort of conversation going with them, they would either just literally turn their back and walk away, or 9 times out of 10, it was like they opened up their life to you, and you were now family. And I ended up spending quite a bit of time with this Moldovan guy, Gennady. This is a story. I snapped the frame on the motorbike in a section in Russia. I ended up, when I snapped the frame, I was riding with 2 other bikers who I'd met along the way purely because they were riding quite quick, and it was like, oh, this is fun. So I was with them. Turns out they were in a race. They were riding in a race from St. Petersburg to Vladivostok, which is 10,000 kilometers. And it's an annual race set up by this Moldovan Russian guy called Gennady Shatov. That's his name. You can Google him. Gennady Filosov Shatov. So I snapped the frame hitting this, it's like a molehill of tar, because the roads get really hot in Russia during the summer. And any kind of incline or decline, when the lorries go up there, the big trucks go up there, they sometimes, they churn the road up because it becomes not fluid-like, but the tarmac
really
becomes
soft.
malleable, it's soft. And as these lorries are either trying to get up the hill or they're braking coming down the hill, it sort of gathers a little bit, and then when
okay.
it cools, you end up with like small
a tiny
molehills,
ramp, yeah.
of tar. I hit one of these at a fair speed, and it just snapped the subframe of my bike again. So I've pulled over to the side of the road. These two guys, good as gold, they said, no problem. We're in this race. We have a support truck. We'll give him a shout. He'll come.
Great.
So they phoned him. He was like 500 kilometres away. But he got to us eventually. But over the course of the rest of the day, when we were stood at the side of the road, everyone else in this race caught up. And they all stopped. So we end up with, I think, like 15, 20 of us, all at the side of the road, in the middle of nowhere in Russia. Like,
Just a party on the side of the road.
literally a party at the side of the road, because the Russians, and have you experienced, they like vodka. So the vodka would come out. We met a couple of, I think they were Polish guys who were heading to Mongolia on their off-road bikes. They stopped. They had like Spam, like corned beef, Spam, that sort of stuff. So we're like, we'll have some food. And they were cooking that by blowtorch at the side of the road. Mosquitoes over there are horrendous, so we're getting attacked by mosquitoes. But we just stopped and had this party at the side of the road. Eventually this van turns up with Gennady driving it, the support van. And he's good as gold. He straps my bike to the back, says, jump in, we'll fix. So I get in. I was in that van for 24 hours whilst he took me to the next town.
Wow.
And along the way, I got chatting with him, and it turns out another time life throws you these things in life, these opportunities. Turns out Gennady was the first Russian to ride solo around the world on a motorcycle.
Right.
He'd written a book about it and all sorts. Never heard of the bloke before in my life. Massive scar all down his face, looked like a pirate. I mean, I can send you a picture of this bloke. Looks like a pirate. But anyway, so I got chatting with him, and I said to him, Russians, I find Russians they either love you or they almost hate you. And he said, for Russian it is easy. For Russian, we don't like you. We take your blood, we kill you. It's easy. And I was like, oh jeez. And he said, but if not, you're like brother. And then he just sort of looked at me, and I was like, Jesus, do you like me or do you not like me?
How far into the 24 hours were you at this point?
First hour.
Like 5 minutes.
It's like I'm trying to make small talk with this guy.
Yeah.
And he just sort of turned to me and just deadpan look, big scar across his face, and then he went, brother, like that. Oh, geez, I'm all right here. And this guy took me to Novosibirsk, which is a really important city in Russia. It's right in the centre, geographical centre of the old Russian Empire. And it's like, because it's in the middle of nowhere, it's so far from Moscow. It's like the centre of arts and science and education, because you couldn't get there. So they were almost safe from the Moscow influence, the KGB and everything like that. So arts thrived there, and they had a very tradition. They had ballet, and they had quite an open way of thinking in that city. Even to this day, that's what they were. Well, certainly then, 2013.
So he dropped you there? Is it the thing where you got there and he took you around?
Yeah, he took me in the van, and we stopped at like a service station. A service is on the motorway.
Right.
It was like one of them outside of Novosibirsk. We stopped. Another guy in a van appeared, and my bike was taken from his van, off the back of his van, put into this other big guy's van. He didn't even introduce himself. It was just put in, and this van disappeared. So I was like, what? And Gennady was like, he said, no problem, he will fix your bike. He said, you'll get a call, we'll call you. I was like, you haven't got my number, how are you going to call me? And then he said, this is, I think his name was Mark, you are going to live with Mark. Mark will look after you, and we will get you your bike when it's fixed. So the whole time we were at the services, people were coming up and getting selfies. Remember the old crappy phones, cameras? Yeah. They were all getting pictures with Gennady. So I was like, who is this guy? And that's when it turns out, I found out all about this bloke, and he was a real celebrity. He was signing stuff for people, and he had copies of his book in the back of the van. And
so what did he think of? You must have told him everything that you were doing.
Yeah. And he was like, cool, good, go for it. Yeah.
Did he give you any recs or?
No. It was just like, enjoy the trip. This is travel. He was just like, this is travel.
Yeah.
And I kind of, I knew that that's just what travel was like. You just dealt with whatever happened. It's like life. It's life on two wheels. And it's just... Life travelling is no different to life at home. Things happen, you deal with it.
Sure. Was it ever the case where like the frame broke or something broke? I mean, I'm sure you were fixing things yourself all the time, but was there ever an instance anywhere that you were like, oh shit, I'm in the middle of nowhere and there's no way to do this?
Yeah, I mean, the frame snapped 4 times.
Yeah.
I went through 3 subframes on that bike, and each time you're thinking, oh God, this is the end. People always turn up. People just help, and you know, if they, the first time when it happened in Africa, before I decided to come back, a local mechanic, because it's an aluminium rear subframe, it can't be traditionally welded. It's got to be what do they call it? Is it TIG welded? It's a special type of weld that you do with aluminium.
Sure.
He couldn't do that, but he said, look, I can solder it. So he literally fabricated a couple of braces, and then he just spot welded and soldered these braces either side of the subframe. So okay, it's not true and it wasn't brilliant, but it did the job, and it allowed me to get back moving again, and then made the decision after Rosso to end it. But it, you know, it probably would have. It's probably stronger than the other side of the subframe that hadn't broke. But you know, people just helped. People just helped all along. And I think when these incidents do happen, and they will happen in travel, that you either just go, okay, well, I'm done now, I'll give up, or you just go with it, accept help from people.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, before you know it, you're living with people.
Yeah.
You know, you end up living with somebody, and they introduce you to their friends, or they take you to where they go to the pub or socialise, and they introduce you to maybe a part of their life that you wouldn't have seen had that initial possible catastrophic incident. If that never happened, you wouldn't have ended up down here.
No, you would have just kept going on the road, and and
that's travel for me. That's what overland travel's all about. It's just things happen. Okay, you're never going to get from A to B to C to D to E. If you do, that's going to be quite boring. So, you know, on your way to B, if you end up at Z, fine, come back to L. Wherever, you know, eventually figure out a way. Your path will just present yourself.
Yeah. So how did that? Okay, you spoke a little bit about this before. You were talking about how you changed as a person. How has that changed you since then? Obviously there was literal transitions and deciding that the police wasn't for you, but as a person and sort of moving away from that police mentality of everyone's out to get you potentially. How have you become this hippie as you described now?
I think I have become who I was before who I think I was or hoped I was before I joined the Old Bill. I think I've sort of reverted back to just a grown-up version of who I think I hope I was in those early days. You know, I like to think I'm approachable. I'm open. I'm honest. Probably too honest. I don't see the point in lying. And I put a big value on integrity. You know, I kind of think as a person, as a man, if you haven't got integrity, what have you got? You know, if someone thinks you're full of it, certainly if I think someone's trying to BS me, I don't really hold any weight to anything they say, anything they do. It's just not somebody that I particularly
I feel bad. I feel horrible when I lie about things. I lied a lot when I was younger. And it's a thing my partner and I talk about open honesty now, and we basically tell each other everything. And it's that thing where if you ever lie about something, even if it doesn't matter, if you just haven't mentioned something, I just feel really guilty. I feel like I'm in trouble or something. And I'm like, well, and then you have to tell them.
I don't think there's anyone out there that can keep up a pretense forever and under all circumstances and conditions. So at some point that facade's going to drop, isn't it? And you're going to get found out.
You hope so. Otherwise you double down and then you become someone who just lies.
I mean, life's
regularly.
too short. Why dig holes for yourself? So I kind of I say what I think. I'll try and be diplomatic about things, but you know, I say what I think. And in my world now, with the YouTube side of things, you can make a lot of money on YouTube by doing like brand deals and all this sort of stuff. But you may, not saying you will, you may have to compromise some of your values to do that. You might have to say something's particularly good, and you might not think that. I'm not willing to do that. I just don't see the point. So, you know, in that side of things, that can curtail how much money I can earn. But I would much rather my community that follow me, and certainly the ones that have met me, know I call a spade, and I'll not BS people. If I recommend something to somebody, it's because I genuinely like that. So, and I'll also say what I don't like. But I'll never say You know, I don't like it, so you won't like it. I'll say, I don't like it for these reasons. You might.
Yeah.
Got to try it yourself. But these are the reasons I don't like it. Well, these are what I do like, these are what I don't like, and these are the reasons around it.
Yeah.
You know, try and be fair. And
Seems like in your podcast as well, because you've got those sponsorships at the start, but it's always something that you're actually using.
Yeah,
which I appreciate.
mean,
You go, this is great, I've used it for ages. Yeah.
There's a plug right here. I mean, Conquerors, that is Conquerors Motorcycle Apparel. That is a mate of mine who started up his own business. So it's like, why would you not try and help your mates out? Do you know what I mean? You know, and other companies that I'm involved with, I know the people, so why would you not try and help them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know the people, I use the products. Why would you not help?
Why not?
You know?
I feel like that's the thing that most, especially YouTubers, they've got something where you can just tell it's something that they don't use. It's someone who talks about perfume, and I'm like, I don't even think you use perfume, so what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I think it's really important to have that integrity with a community that's following you and has trusted you all this way and that you've built up, and then to turn around and be like, oh, actually, I'm going to sell you this thing for 2 minutes before my content.
Yeah. But I think the audience, I think people are maturing now, you know, and I think people are very aware of that now. So I do think, I hope things are going to, they are changing. They already are changing. You know, people don't just because somebody says it in a YouTube video, they don't go, oh, well, that got to be real then. They're not like that anymore. People are maturing, I think.
I think it goes both ways, because then you've got, you know, the world of influencers, and their whole job is to get their tits out on camera and then sell you the next Sony television or whatever it is. Yeah. It's very much...
And a lot of people are bored of that now. Yeah. You know, and I certainly do. The second there's a bit of titillation around it, okay, it is what it is. I don't hold any weight to it anymore. It's just like, you know, it's almost like you've got deaf ears now. Looks good, that's it.
Yeah.
But, and it's like that with, you know, male, female, I don't care what it is. As soon as you think this is just a sales pitch, it's like, yeah, not interested.
Yeah. Once you smell it once, you can really pick it out after that. Before it even starts, you're like, I know what this is.
But then I've been on the receiving end of that, in that people have said to me, oh, well, of course you're going to say that because you're being paid. And I'm like, well, I'm not. And no, you obviously don't follow my channel, because that's not how I operate. And that does kind of hurt. But then people, you know, I understand why people might think that. So learn from it and whatever.
Yeah. So after the dream,
yes.
How did you move on to the next phase of what TeapotOne is now?
Right. Okay. So I got notified I was under investigation.
Yes.
That governor had said she could take up to 2 years, and that would be 2 years without any overtime. 2 years basically sat in an office, restricted duty, waiting to be told this is what's going to happen. And even at the end of that, the maximum she could give me is a formal written letter to say you have to keep your nose clean for the next, I think, 3 years. Right. And that was it. It's a slap on the wrist. Don't be a naughty boy. That's all they could do. But, and this was the big but, I had to stop all social presence. So I had to stop TeapotOne that I'd spent, you know, which had arisen because of the promise I'd made my mum. Yeah. And I'd spent my life from 2009, when I decided I was going to do this, to that point, 11 years, building this community that I now had around TeapotOne. And it kind of is, again, the hippie in me, it's not a brand. It is a brand, but it's a community. You know, there's a real core group of people in there who've got behind me, and then certainly over the last 5 years now, since I went full time, you know, I've done meetups and ride outs, and now I do the tours. Yeah, you get the same faces all turning up, and they've got their own, you know, friendships have been made around it, which is so cool to see. And
seems like it's quite pun intended, it's a vehicle for you to do all the things you want to do and to live your dream.
It's those words from my mum, that live your life mantra that she gave me, and I've now been able to share with people. It really seems to strike a chord with a lot of people out there, and the amount of messages I've had from folk who have either lost loved ones or they're going through their own battles with health. Some people, sadly, you know, they're terminal, but they're like, you know, this has made me go on that trip they've always wanted to do, or learn that simple things, or learn the language they've always wanted to learn. They've never done it. It's been the kick in the arse that I had that made me do my thing. It's done that for them, and that is so cool to see. You know, just from such a loss of losing my mum, those words have had such a positive impact on other people's lives. I just think that's amazing. And I wasn't I'd seen that before this all happened in the old bill, and I wasn't willing to give up on all that. So, I spoke with my wife about it, and it was my wife that actually said to me, TeapotOne means more to you than that job.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's a copper as well, works in the same department I used to work in. And she was like, I know the police is just a job for you. You get way more from your bikes and from the TeapotOne thing. So she said, okay, leave. We'll give it a year.
Mm-hmm.
We can, if it comes to it, we can survive off of just her wage. I'd saved up a little bit of money by this point anyway, so I thought, I can survive. I can pull my weight for a year. So that was it. I had the great delight of walking into that governor's office, throwing my warrant card at her and telling her what I thought, and saying, I'm done. Bye-bye, see you later. Obviously, she told me to think about it, and I did, and still made the decision, so I resigned. Officially left in, I think it was April 2020, and then I think it was May, the world went into lockdown.
Yeah. What was that like? Yeah, because you just launched, and I was watching that the other day, because I think that was the first, I think it might be your featured video on your channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
Is that sort of like, it's around 2020, early 2020. You're like, right, I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, but that was like February you put that video out.
Yeah.
So then what happened after that?
I resigned from the old bill to do motorcycle tours and YouTube.
Yeah.
And literally a month later, the world got locked down. So it was like, oh, yeah. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
So a little bit of panic. And I remember speaking to my old senior boss at Diplomatic Protection and saying, Gov, are the doors open to come back? Mm-hmm. And he'd been a big supporter. Even the commissioner supported the channel, but none of them would override this governor for some reason. I don't know what. She's been moved since, not because of me, but she's been moved. But nobody would override her, which really hacked me off. Just because everything I'd sacrificed in my life for that job, and then no one was willing to go to this blooming woman and say, that's not fair what you're doing. It's totally unreasonable for what I was alleged to have done. It was an honesty and integrity thing, believe it or not, because I'd blurred the speed. That's what they had to gripe about, which I get, I understand. But anyway, I went to this governor and said, is the door open to come back? And he was like, I'd love to have you back, but he said, the second you come back in, you're still going to be under investigation, because they were a separate department,
right?
The internal affairs lot. So I thought, right, okay, I'm done. My wife was like, don't go back. She could see that wasn't for me anymore.
Sure.
So it was like, right, well, how am I going to make this work? I started a Patreon just before I went full time. I started a Patreon. Just a friend of mine had recommended it, and I thought, no one's going to join this. Why would people pay money for something they can get for free anyway on YouTube? I just didn't understand why anyone would do it. And the support I got was phenomenal. Literally, in the space of probably a month, the financial support I got on Patreon pretty much took place of my wage from the police.
Right.
So it was like, oh, geez, wow. People were just fantastic. And that allowed me pretty much to ride out certainly that first sort of 6 to 8 months of COVID, when the world just shut down. And then things started to slowly ease up, didn't they, over the next few years? So I could do the odd little trip here and there and do a few things. And then once all the restrictions were gone, there was an appetite there. People had an appetite to travel. So I had this tour business that had built up, and people wanted to travel. So the demand since then has just been phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
so you go on trips with people now?
Yeah, I have a company called, I plug, Chicken Strips, chickenstrips.co.uk. I've sold half that business to another guy called Simon Weir, who is pretty much a world leader in motorcycle route planning. He's very much like a Rain Man. He's good
to have on your side.
Yeah, he has an unbelievable memory and mind for motorcycle routes and simple things like cafes. And he's been a fully fledged journalist for near on 30 years in the motorcycle trade. He's been editor of all the big magazines, MCN, Ride, Bike, all these sort of things out there. So he's spent best part of 20-30 years being paid to ride certainly around Europe and find the best roads and document them, and that was his life. So he's written loads of books on it.
Yeah.
I had him on my podcast, I was doing my tours, but I was only limiting it to maybe 6 or 7 people because it was just me, and I didn't want a group bigger than that, just with the logistics. So I got chatting, and after a beer or two, I said, well, why don't we team up and come and do some of the tours with me? We can use your routes, bring my following, I'll film it. That'll allow us to take more people, more scope, bigger profit margin. Let's see what we can do. So we did that, and the first year was just phenomenal. So I ended up selling him half the business, and that's it. We've gone full time with it. So that's what we're doing now. We're off to Australia next month, first international tour.
Great.
So see what happens.
Sort of like, did you ever see, there's a famous American TV show back in the day called Man vs. Food?
Oh, yeah.
And he travelled around and did the food competitions.
Yeah.
And then he got, was it Adam something, I can't remember his name, but I used to watch that when I was a kid. And then he got really sick from all the eating he did. So then it was people versus food, where he'd go and like other people would do the competitions, and it was never quite the same in that circumstance, but it sort of feels a similar thing. Is like now it's the TeapotOne community, people inspiring people to not only follow their own dreams, which might be different. I think it's really important. It's like watching someone do anything that they really care about makes everyone want to do the thing that they care about. But then it must be quite inspiring to see people who are inspired by you and then come riding with you around the world. And
it's everything. It really is everything. That sounds so wet, but it really is. To see, especially to it's almost like a legacy. It's my mom's legacy. You know, it's those words, that live your life thing. Like I said earlier, to see the impact that is having on other people. It's just awesome. And it could be simple things. Like some people have never ridden a motorcycle in Europe because it was always, they didn't know how. They're like, oh, it's in a too difficult box, so it's too much of a change from what I normally do. And then they come away on one of my tours, and all of a sudden they're riding in Europe, and it's just like, oh, hang on, that was really easy. So the next thing you know, they've come away, they've gone out their little comfort zone, and then they meet other friends. You know, I've had predominantly men, I've got to say, it's predominantly blokes that come away with us. But you'll have lads who maybe only live 20, 30 miles apart, never met each other before, ever. They come away on a tour, and then they're like, they strike up an accord, they develop a friendship. The next thing you know, a couple of these lads from the group of, say, 30 or 15 of us in these tours, or might be half a dozen of them. Next thing you know, they're away and they've planned their own little tour. So all of a sudden they're pushing a little bit further afield, and then they'll go a wee bit further afield. And they might watch a vid and see I've been to Morocco, and I'm always telling people, go to Morocco. So easy, you'll love it. Next thing you know, these people that were scared to go to a different calf in their hometown, they're now going to Morocco on their bikes, you know, and it's just awesome to see how people's lives get impacted from stuff like that. I love it. It's awesome.
You built like quite an international community. I imagine you've got lots of friends around the world now.
You know, that is awesome. You know, I was out in the States a couple of years ago. I took myself, just bought a flight over there, and a guy that I had on my podcast, a Welsh guy who lived over there, he was just like, look, if you ever get to this part of America, I've got a bike in my garage, it's yours.
Great.
So give him his due, Alid. He didn't let it lie. I'd had a few beers on the podcast, and I was like, yeah, I'll take you up on that. Well, he kept hounding me, you know, because we were on WhatsApp. He was the one that was hounding me, going, have you booked your flights yet? So one day, after I'd done my old tax at the start of the year, I had a bit left. You know, tax man wasn't quite as vicious as I thought he was going to be. And I was like, all right, bugger it, I'm going to book a flight. So I just booked a flight across, and I messaged him and said, book my flights, I'll arrive on this date. And he was like, cool,
great,
bike's here for you. So I did. I went over there, and you know, I met up with people. People got in touch on socials, and I met up with a couple of folk when I was over there. Brilliant, awesome. We're going to Australia, same thing. There's people that are just like, are you going to be in such and such a place? I'm like, not quite there, but we'll be here. What date you're there, I'll come meet you for a beer. So hopefully we'll get the same thing.
Great. It's really cool. It's a really cool thing you've done. I think we'll end there. This has been great. Thank you. You've got Australia. Anything else coming up?
Oh, it's a whole year of tours, just all the usual sort of European ones
away.
Next year. Basically every 3 weeks we're away. So.
Does it feel like you've actually ended, because I know you've technically ended the trip around the world, tour around the world, but it kind of sounds like it's just still going.
I always used to get asked, will you go again? Would you do the trip again? And I was a no, probably up until COVID, because I just thought, I've done it. I've done it now, so there wasn't that same yearning, the drive. That's sort of resurfaced now, and there's still so many places I want to go. So never say never. I've promised, again through beer on the podcast, sadly, I promised that I would cycle around the UK, around the outside, the coastal.
Right.
So I've said I'll do that. So that has to be done first. I've not said I'll do this, but it's it's a thing that has been growing and growing and growing about rowing the Atlantic. I really fancy rowing solo across the Atlantic, so that's there. Not convinced that'll happen yet, but the cycle has to. And then there's like finally get to Mongolia. I want to go to Nepal on the bike. There's loads of parts of the Americas I want to get to. There's still Africa.
Yeah.
I can't let Africa beat me. I've got to get back there and take all those countries off the
Yeah.
list.
All right.
So there's loads still to do.
Great, yeah. Like I say, like growing up with a dad who was always telling me to stay away from motorbikes, just watching your content, I'm going to join you probably at some point. It sounds great.
So if anyone listening or watching,
Yeah.
if you have the slightest inkling of riding a motorbike or travel, but certainly riding a motorbike, do your CBT at the very least, which is your 125cc. Do that. You know, it's a day out of your life just to go and do your CBT.
Sure.
You'll drive around, you'll ride around the car park, and then eventually, if they think you're okay, they'll put you out on the road. You're doing 125cc. You're not going to break any, land speed records. If that lights a fire, welcome.
Come along.
Welcome.
Great.
Some people it won't. My wife did her CBT. Really wasn't for her. She just
Good that she tried though.
Yeah, she went for it, and she eventually passed. But she was like, that doesn't give me the same passion it gives you. But there's loads of other people that, it will ignite something in you.
Great.
Welcome to the family.
Great. Yeah. Where can people find you?
You can get me at TeapotOne, so it's just TeapotOne, TeapotOne.com. That's the website. TeapotOne on all the socials, YouTube, or the tour companies, chickenstrips.co.uk.
Great. Amazing. This has been really lovely. Thank you so much.
I've loved it, Tom. Really have. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me on as the first.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. All right.
Cool.